Why do you keep making the same mistakes even when you know better? That question has probably echoed in your mind more times than you care to admit, usually in the quiet moments after you've just destroyed another perfectly good trading day. Let me paint you a picture. It's early morning. You're sitting in front of your screen with a fresh cup of coffee, a clean journal, and a mindset reset from the night before. You told yourself this time would be different. You reviewed your rules. You know exactly what you're looking for. You even wrote down the promise you made to yourself in bold letters at the top of the page. Today I will not overtrade. Today I will wait for confirmation. Today I will trust my plan. And for a few minutes, maybe even an hour, you feel calm. You feel disciplined. You feel like a trader who has finally figured it out. But then the market opens. Price starts to move. A candle forms that catches your attention. It's not quite your setup, but it's close enough to make you second-guess yourself. Your heart rate increases slightly. Your focus narrows. You lean forward in your chair, and somewhere deep in your mind, a voice starts whispering. What if this is the move? What if I miss it? What if waiting costs me the only good opportunity of the day? Your finger hovers over the mouse. You know this isn't the trade. You know this is exactly how yesterday started. You know this is the pattern you swore you'd break. But knowing doesn't stop you. Your hand clicks the button. The trade is live. And the moment it's active, reality crashes back in. Your stomach sinks. You feel the familiar wave of regret. You shake your head and ask yourself the same painful question. Why did I just do that? I knew better. This moment right here, this gap between knowing and doing, is where most traders live their entire career. It's not a gap caused by ignorance. It's not a gap caused by lack of skill. It's a gap caused by something far deeper, something most traders never address because they don't even realize it exists. You don't repeat mistakes because you're careless. You repeat mistakes because your brain is wired to protect you from discomfort, even when that discomfort is the exact thing that leads to growth. And until you understand how that wiring works, you'll continue to sabotage yourself no matter how much you learn. Let me take you deeper into this. Think about the last time you broke your rules. Not the trade itself, but the moments leading up to it. What were you feeling? Maybe you felt bored because the market was slow. Maybe you felt anxious because you were down for the week. Maybe you felt excited because price was moving fast. Maybe you felt pressured because you needed to prove something to yourself or someone else. Whatever the feeling was, it wasn't neutral. There was an emotional current running beneath the surface, and that current pushed you toward the decision before you even realized what was happening. This is the part most traders miss. They think trading mistakes happen in the moment of execution, but the truth is they happen long before that. They happen in the invisible emotional buildup that precedes the click. You don't just suddenly decide to overtrade. You feel restless first. You don't just suddenly decide to move your stop loss. You feel fear first. You don't just suddenly decide to revenge trade. You feel wounded first. The emotion always comes before the action, but it moves so fast and so quietly that you don't notice it until the damage is already done. Your brain operates on two levels. There's the conscious level, the one where logic lives, where you analyze charts, where you write down rules, where you understand risk management, where you promise yourself you'll do better. And then there's the subconscious level, the one where emotion lives, where fear resides, where greed hides, where survival instincts trigger, where old memories repeat, where identity forms. The conscious mind is slow and deliberate. The subconscious mind is fast and automatic. And in the heat of the moment, when the market is moving and your money is on the line, the subconscious mind always wins. This is why you can study trading psychology, read all the books, watch all the videos, understand every principle, and still fall into the same traps. Because understanding happens in the conscious mind, but behavior happens in the subconscious. And your subconscious doesn't care what you know. It only cares about what it feels. Let me show you how this plays out in real trading scenarios. Imagine a trader who has a rule that says he only takes one trade per day. He's tested this rule. He knows it works. He's even had weeks where he followed it perfectly and saw his account grow steadily. But then comes a Monday morning, he takes his first trade and it stops out. It was a valid setup. The loss was small, everything went according to plan. But emotionally, something shifts. He didn't just lose money, he lost the feeling of being right. He lost the momentum he wanted to start the week with. He lost the validation he was hoping to get from the market. And now there's a quiet but powerful discomfort sitting in his chest. His conscious mind says the day is over, follow your rule, walk away, come back tomorrow. But his subconscious mind says something entirely different. It says you can't end the day like this. It says you need to fix this feeling. It says there's still time to turn things around. And before he can fully process what's happening, he's analyzing the chart again. He's looking for another setup. He's justifying why this one might be different. He's convincing himself that the rule doesn't apply in this specific situation. And within 20 minutes, he's back in a trade. Not because the setup was better. Not because the plan changed. But because the discomfort of sitting with a loss was too painful to endure. He thought he was trading the market, but he was really just trying to escape an emotion. This is the cycle that destroys more traders than any technical mistake ever could. You make a decision based on emotion. You regret it. You promise yourself you won't do it again. You return to the charts with good intentions, but the emotion resurfaces. And the moment it does, your subconscious takes over and the pattern repeats. You're not failing because you're undisciplined. You're failing because your emotional reactions are happening faster than your conscious decisions, and you haven't learned how to interrupt them. Now let's go even deeper. Let's talk about why certain emotions have so much power over you in the first place. It comes down to something psychologists call conditioning. Your brain has been learning how to respond to discomfort your entire life, long before you ever opened a trading chart. When you were a child and you felt anxious, you learned to seek comfort. When you felt bored, you learned to seek stimulation. When you felt inadequate, you learned to seek validation. These responses were useful in everyday life. They helped you navigate social situations, manage stress, avoid danger. But in trading, these same responses become toxic. When you feel the discomfort of waiting, your brain seeks stimulation by forcing a trade. When you feel the discomfort of a small loss, your brain seeks comfort by hoping it reverses. When you feel the discomfort of being wrong, your brain seeks validation by trying to win the next trade immediately. You're not trading the market. You're responding to conditioned emotional patterns that were built long before trading ever existed in your life. And here's the painful truth. Every time you give in to these patterns, you strengthen them. Every time you overtrade to escape boredom, you train your brain that overtrading relieves boredom. Every time you move your stop loss to avoid pain, you train your brain that avoiding pain is more important than following rules. Every time you revenge trade to recover from a loss, you train your brain that emotional recovery is the priority, not strategic execution. You think you're just making mistakes, but what you're actually doing is reinforcing the neural pathways that guarantee you'll make the same mistakes again. This is why knowledge alone doesn't change behavior. You can know that revenge trading is destructive, but if your brain has learned that revenge trading temporarily relieves emotional pain, it will keep pushing you toward it. The behavior isn't the problem. The emotional conditioning behind the behavior is the problem. Let's talk about another force that keeps you trapped. It's called identity conflict. Deep down, you have a vision of the trader you want to become. You see yourself as disciplined, patient, consistent, calm under pressure. Someone who follows their plan no matter what. That's the identity you're reaching for. But there's another identity living inside you. The one that's been there longer. The one that's more familiar. Maybe it's the impatient version of yourself. Maybe it's the anxious version. Maybe it's the version that needs quick rewards. Maybe it's the version that hates uncertainty. Maybe it's the version that craves validation. Whatever it is, this old identity is stronger because it's been practiced for years. And your actions will always align with the identity that feels most real to you, not the identity you wish you had. This is why you can have a perfect trading plan and still sabotage it. Your plan reflects the identity you want. Your behavior reflects the identity you have. And until those two align, you'll continue to act in ways that contradict your goals. So the question becomes, how do you bridge that gap? How do you stop repeating the same mistakes when your brain is literally wired to pull you back into them? The answer is not more knowledge. The answer is not a better strategy. The answer is emotional rewiring, and that happens through awareness and interruption. Let me explain what I mean. Awareness is the ability to notice your emotional state before it takes control of your actions. Most traders are only aware of their emotions after the mistake has already been made. They feel regret, frustration, disappointment, but by then it's too late. Real awareness happens earlier. It happens in the moment when you first feel the urge to act outside your plan. It happens when you notice the subtle shift in your chest, the slight increase in heart rate, the quiet voice that starts justifying a bad decision. That's the moment of power. That's the moment where change becomes possible. But catching that moment requires practice. It requires you to slow down. It requires you to check in with yourself emotionally before you check the chart. It requires you to ask a simple question. What am I feeling right now, and is that feeling influencing my decision? Most traders never ask that question. They go straight from feeling to action without any pause in between. They feel anxious, so they close the trade early. They feel excited, so they enter without confirmation. They feel frustrated, so they double their risk. The emotion and the action are fused together. But if you can insert even a 2-second pause between the emotion and the action, everything changes. That pause is where your conscious mind has a chance to step in. That pause is where you can choose a different response. That pause is where discipline actually lives. Discipline is not the absence of emotion. Discipline is the ability to feel the emotion and still choose the right action. Now let's talk about interruption. Once you've developed the awareness to notice the emotional trigger, you need a way to interrupt the automatic response. This is where most traders fail. They notice the emotion, but they don't know what to do with it, so they either fight it or give in to it. Fighting it doesn't work because emotions don't disappear when you resist them. They get stronger. Giving in doesn't work because that just reinforces the pattern. So what do you do instead? You acknowledge the emotion without acting on it. You let it exist. You give it space. You say to yourself, I feel the urge to enter this trade right now, and I'm going to sit with that urge for 60 seconds without doing anything. And then you breathe. You step back from the screen. You let the intensity of the urge rise and fall like a wave, because that's what emotions do. They peak and they pass. But most traders act at the peak, and that's where the mistakes happen. If you can train yourself to wait through the peak, you'll find that the urge weakens on its own. And when it weakens, your logical mind has space to reemerge. Suddenly the setup doesn't look as compelling. Suddenly the risk doesn't seem worth it. Suddenly you remember why you have rules in the first place. This process of awareness and interruption is not easy. It goes against every instinct your brain has developed. Your brain wants immediate relief from discomfort. It wants to act fast. It wants to avoid pain and chase pleasure. But trading requires the opposite. Trading requires you to sit in discomfort. Trading requires you to delay gratification. Trading requires you to accept pain as part of the process. And your brain will resist this with everything it has, not because you're weak, but because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do, protect you from perceived threats. The problem is your brain can't tell the difference between a real threat and an emotional one. It treats a small losing trade the same way it would treat physical danger. And when it senses danger, it pushes you into survival mode. Logic shuts down. Impulse takes over. And you make decisions that feel urgent in the moment but look insane in hindsight. Let me give you another example. Picture a trader who's been following his plan for 3 weeks straight. His account is growing. His confidence is building. Everything feels aligned. Then one morning he takes a trade that seems perfect. All his criteria are met. He enters with the right size. He sets his stop exactly where it should be. And then price immediately moves against him. It doesn't hit his stop, but it pulls back just enough to create doubt. He watches the candles form. He feels his heart start to race. He tells himself to trust the setup, but a voice in his head whispers, "What if this time is different? What if the market is shifting? What if holding this trade costs you all the progress you've made?" The fear grows louder. His hand moves toward the mouse. He doesn't want to close the trade. He knows it's too early. He knows this kind of pullback is normal, but the discomfort is unbearable, and in a moment of weakness, he exits. The trade closes at a small loss, and within 5 minutes, price reverses and runs exactly to his target without him. He sits there staring at the chart, feeling sick. He didn't lose because his analysis was wrong. He lost because his emotions overrode his plan. He knew better, but he didn't act better. This scenario is not rare. It happens to almost every trader at some point. And the reason it keeps happening is because fear is faster than logic. Fear doesn't wait for you to think. It activates your nervous system instantly. Your hands get cold. Your chest tightens. Your vision narrows. Your brain shifts into fight or flight mode. And in that state, your only goal is to escape the discomfort. You're not thinking about probabilities. You're not thinking about your edge. You're not thinking about your long-term success. You're just trying to make the bad feeling go away. And the fastest way to make it go away is to close the trade. So you do. And the cycle repeats. So how do you break free from this? How do you stop letting fear control your decisions? The answer starts with changing your relationship with discomfort. Most traders see discomfort as a sign that something is wrong. They think if they feel uncomfortable, it means they made a bad decision. But that's not true. Discomfort is not a signal that you're failing. Discomfort is a signal that you're growing. Every time you sit through the anxiety of a pullback without closing early, you're rewiring your brain. Every time you resist the urge to overtrade when you're bored, you're building discipline. Every time you accept a loss without revenge trading, you're strengthening your emotional resilience. The discomfort doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. The discomfort means you're doing it right. You're choosing the hard path instead of the easy one. You're choosing growth instead of comfort. And that choice, repeated over time, is what transforms you from an emotional trader into a consistent one. But here's the thing. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen because you watched one video or read one book or had one good week. It happens through repetition. It happens through failing, reflecting, adjusting, and trying again. It happens through building awareness slowly, one trade at a time. It happens through catching yourself 1 second earlier each time. It happens through celebrating the moments when you didn't act on impulse, even if the trade itself didn't work out. Because the win is not in the trade outcome. The win is in the behavior. If you followed your plan, you won. If you stayed disciplined, you won. If you managed your emotions, you won. The market doesn't owe you profit. But you owe yourself integrity. And integrity is built through consistent action aligned with your values, not through consistent profit. Let me share one more insight that might shift your perspective. Most traders think the goal is to eliminate emotions. They think the solution is to become robotic, detached, unaffected by wins and losses. But that's not realistic, and it's not even desirable. Emotions are part of being human. You're never going to stop feeling fear when money is on the line. You're never going to stop feeling excitement when price moves in your favor. You're never going to stop feeling frustration when a trade doesn't go your way. The goal is not to eliminate these feelings. The goal is to stop letting them dictate your actions. You can feel fear and still hold your position. You can feel excitement and still wait for confirmation. You can feel frustration and still stick to your plan. Emotional mastery is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming intentional in the presence of emotion. Think about it this way. Every time you're in a trade, there are 2 conversations happening. One is happening on the chart. Price is moving, levels are testing, patterns are forming. That's the external conversation. The other conversation is happening inside you. Fear is rising, greed is whispering, doubt is creeping in. That's the internal conversation. Most traders only focus on the external conversation. They study candlesticks, support and resistance, indicators, patterns. And all of that matters. But if you ignore the internal conversation, the external one becomes meaningless. Because the internal conversation is what determines how you interpret the external one. If you're feeling desperate, you'll see opportunity everywhere. If you're feeling fearful, you'll see danger in every candle. If you're feeling confident, you'll trust your setups. If you're feeling doubtful, you'll second-guess every decision. The chart is neutral. Your emotions are not, and your emotions color everything you see. This is why two traders can look at the exact same chart and make completely opposite decisions. One sees a breakout and enters with confidence. The other sees a trap and stays out. Same data, different interpretation. The difference is not in the chart. The difference is in the internal state of the trader. Your emotions shape your perception. Your perception shapes your decisions. Your decisions shape your results. And your results reinforce your emotions. It's a loop. And if the loop is built on fear, doubt, and impulsiveness, it will keep producing the same painful outcomes. But if you can shift the internal conversation, if you can calm the noise, if you can create space between stimulus and response, the entire loop changes. So here's what I want you to understand. The reason you keep making the same mistakes even when you know better is not because you're broken. It's not because you lack intelligence. It's not because trading isn't for you. It's because you've been fighting the wrong battle. You've been trying to fix your behavior without addressing the emotions that drive the behavior. You've been trying to force discipline without building the emotional foundation that discipline requires. You've been trying to override your subconscious mind with your conscious mind, and that's a fight you can't win through force alone. You win by understanding. You win by awareness. You win by rewiring. You win by changing your relationship with discomfort, fear, impatience, and self-worth. Start small. The next time you feel the urge to take a trade that doesn't match your plan, pause. Don't judge yourself. Don't fight the urge. Just notice it. Say to yourself, I'm feeling the urge to act right now, and I'm choosing to wait. And then wait. Even if it's just for 30 seconds. Let the urge exist without acting on it. See what happens. You'll probably notice that the intensity fades. You'll probably notice that the setup doesn't look as good after the pause. You'll probably notice that you just saved yourself from a mistake, and that one moment of awareness, that one pause, that one conscious choice is a victory. That's where the transformation begins. Not with a massive overhaul, but with tiny moments of awareness repeated consistently over time. The same applies to fear. The next time you're in a trade and you feel the urge to close early, pause. Ask yourself, is this decision based on my plan, or is it based on fear? If it's based on fear, acknowledge it. Say to yourself, I'm feeling fear right now, and that's okay. Fear doesn't mean I'm wrong. Fear just means I'm uncomfortable. And I can be uncomfortable and still follow my plan. Then take a breath. Step away from the screen for a moment. Let the fear peak and pass. And when you come back, reevaluate with a calmer mind. You might still choose to exit, but now it's a choice, not a reaction. This is the work that nobody talks about. This is the inner game that separates consistent traders from everyone else. It's not glamorous. It doesn't show up on a profit curve. You can't backtest it. But it's the foundation of everything. Because your strategy doesn't matter if you can't execute it. Your edge doesn't matter if you abandon it under pressure. Your rules don't matter if you break them every time you feel uncomfortable. The market will always create situations that trigger your emotions. It will always test your patience, your discipline, your resolve. That's not a bug. That's a feature. The market is designed to exploit emotional weakness. And if you don't address your emotional responses, the market will continue to take from you no matter how much you learn. So yes, you keep making the same mistakes, even when you know better. But now you know why. It's not because you're incapable. It's because knowing and doing are governed by different parts of your mind. And until you train the emotional part to support the logical part, the gap will remain. But the gap can close. It closes through awareness. It closes through practice. It closes through self-compassion. It closes through repetition. And it closes through the willingness to sit in discomfort without reacting. That's the path. It's not easy, but it's the only path that leads to lasting change. And every time you choose awareness over impulse, every time you choose patience over panic, every time you choose integrity over immediate relief, you're walking that path. You're becoming the trader you want to be. Not someday. Right now, one decision at a time.